I don't need your business. You know what? Maybe Disney does. Maybe you're a tool, you're a pawn in this
But
film.
imagine you spend $250 million and you get some young girl and you don't kind of talk to her about like, hey, don't get political, you're young.
Magazine wrote on X, when you compare how Rachel Zegler spoke about Snow White to how other actresses who played live-action Disney princesses spoke about their character, really underlines just how poorly she carried herself.
Rachel Zegler, the 22-year-old actress who once envisioned Disney's live-action Snow White as her springboard to superstardom, is now, according to multiple insiders, privately begging the studio for a second chance to repair both.
I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats.
The film's battered image and her own rapidly deteriorating reputation, yet every email, voicemail, and back-channel proposal she has sent in the last 14 days has been met with a wall of silence so absolute that even her agents can't secure a courtesy callback.
For Snow White, it's coming to terms with finding herself and finding her inner voice and finding a sense of agency so that she can be a just ruler and a wonderful queen, because there's another one in town.
Rumor has it she first realized how dire the situation was when her management forwarded a confidential analytics memo showing that the movie's domestic gross would likely stall below $130 million, less than half of what internal forecasts had labeled the doomsday floor.
People have real problems and no one gives a shit if she got paid for 17 instead of 18 on her multi-million-dollar salary, which is not calculated by the hour.
The same memo allegedly included sentiment heat maps proving that each time Zegler's face or name appeared in new marketing materials, negative engagement spiked faster than any Disney data scientist had seen since the 2017 Last Jedi backlash. Stunned, she reportedly offered to do anything: re-record dialogue, film a tearful apology video, donate her salary to children's charities, even fly economy on a month-long global goodwill tour if it would persuade skeptical parents to give the movie a chance.
But you don't seemingly like your own character, so she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
But sources say the studio's top decision-makers, still reeling from shareholder fury over the film's ballooning budget and bruised brand metrics, have adopted a strategy best described as "let it die quietly," believing that any renewed spotlight on Zegler could reignite the culture war firestorm that cratered opening weekend attendance. The silence is not accidental. Two executives who attended Disney's most recent quarterly damage control summit claim a senior communications vice president presented a slide deck titled "Noise versus Lift," demonstrating that no conceivable apology or re-engagement campaign featuring Zegler would improve box office revenue enough to justify the risk of more controversy.
Because you just can't close your mouth. You just can't be sane, even when you do open your mouth. I think this girl does not deserve a feature-length film, but rather, she deserves to be in a padded cell.
One graph, color-coded in grim shades of red, predicted that a single unscripted soundbite, such as Zegler repeating her earlier quip that the 1937 prince is basically a stalker, could wipe out up to 12% of remaining ticket demand among multi-generational families, the exact demographic Disney needs to fill theaters on weekends 2 through 6.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird.
Board members, already frustrated by the film's $270 million production tab and another $120 million in global marketing spend, allegedly concluded the safest course was to let the picture fade from headlines, dump it onto Disney Plus as quietly as possible, and redirect every promotional dollar towards safer holiday releases. The edict filtered down the chain in a single sentence: no more unscripted Rachel content, period. Zegler's camp is said to be in disbelief. Friends describe her mood swings as whiplash between resolve and despair. On good days, she crafts elaborate redemption pitches, a heartfelt sit-down with a legacy Disney animator to discuss the importance of preserving classic storytelling, a viral duet with a children's choir singing "Someday My Prince Will Come," a charity live stream where she answers young fans' questions about perseverance.
It's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign.
On bad days, she allegedly stares at analytics dashboards, refreshing Twitter to watch negative hashtags climb, then calls her publicist in tears asking, "Why won't they just let me talk to people?" The publicist, one source says, has run out of comforting answers. Disney's silence is so total that even routine soundtrack clearances, standard paperwork that normally takes hours, have been in legal limbo for weeks because executives don't want new music videos surfacing on YouTube and reviving hostile comment threads. Complicating everything is the rumored $100 million defamation draft her lawyers prepared against co-star Gal Gadot. Zegler believes, according to two individuals familiar with the situation, that Gadot privately blamed her for on-set delays and budget overruns, remarks that then trickled through Hollywood's gossip circuit and hardened into a narrative that Zegler was impossible.
You see how young these women are. You know, like this woman, Rachel Zegler, she looks about 12 years old in that clip, who plays the new Snow White.
Gadot's representatives flatly deny she disparaged anyone, calling the draft suit a publicity gambit. But the mere existence of the legal paperwork has studio attorneys on edge. They fear that if the complaint is filed, Discovery will dredge up internal emails, Slack threads, and set reports showing just how chaotic production became. Documents Disney would rather keep buried while it negotiates new credit lines and tries to stabilize its stock price. The legal department's advice to upper management has therefore been simple. Keep distance from both actresses until the threat of litigation evaporates or becomes unavoidable.
It's somehow they're mutually exclusive, by the way. You've got to get rid of the love storyline and focus more on how she wants to be, CEO of IBM? I mean, like, what's Snow White's plan? She's Snow White. She's like a princess. Okay, whatever. What are the dwarfs now? Are they like little helpers who are going to help her get her Harvard education, her PhD at Harvard, while she works out her Mensa IQ?
The financial stakes explain the caution. Snow White was supposed to ride the same money train that carried Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King to billion-dollar grosses, but early rough-cut screenings produced what one executive called the longest feedback spreadsheet I've ever seen. Parents complained about an overstuffed narrative. Teens rolled their eyes at monologues about self-empowerment. Nostalgia lovers hated the replacement of the Seven Dwarfs with a CGI entourage of nondescript forest friends. Each complaint spawned a rewrite, which begat reshoots, which in turn triggered new VFX passes that forced the deadline to slip, inflating costs. By the time marketing began, every trailer was a Frankenstein's monster of story beats re-edited to hide last-minute structural changes. Viewers sensed the incoherence, and the comment sections turned brutal. When Zegler, in an attempt to project confidence, told Variety she was proud to challenge outdated tropes, the quote spread like wildfire through forums already primed. To see Disney as preaching rather than entertaining, hashtag campaigns calling for boycotts trended for days.
I would highly advise that you boycott this film, no matter how much your children love Snow White.
Studio polling showed brand favorability among core nostalgia moms dropping to its lowest level since 2005's Home on the Range flop. Faced with that data, marketing chiefs pleaded for a pivot, pull Zegler off the front lines, lean into Gadot's global fan base, and sell the movie as a visually lush villain origin story. But Gadot, juggling other commitments and wary of being painted as the film's sole savior, limited her availability. Disney, desperate, then tried to spin the narrative around cutting-edge VFX and original songs, yet those features couldn't outshine the sense that something deeper was off. Opening night receipts confirmed the worst fears, and within 48 hours of the disappointing debut, Zegler's requests for additional press were, insiders say, quietly rerouted to legal for risk assessment. The young star's personal outreach to Disney leadership only intensified after an investor relations leak claimed the film could record a write-down exceeding $190 million. Zegler supposedly emailed a top executive a 5-paragraph apology for any remarks that landed poorly, offered to film a TikTok series explaining the production's craftsmanship, and volunteered to host a princess leadership workshop for Disney Dreamers Academy, all pro bono.
These big bad feminists now are telling us that's ridiculous. How dare you want to meet a handsome prince and be swept off of your feet and live happily ever after? No, you should want to be the prince. You should want to go out and fight the bad guys with a sword.
The executive's assistant acknowledged receipt. No further response arrived. Days later, Zegler's agents attempted to set up a Zoom call with Bob Iger himself, promising she would stick to pre-approved talking points. Corporate communications declined, citing scheduling conflicts. To date, no one at the C-suite level has spoken to her since the movie opened. This silence has cascading consequences. Retail partners, once banking on Snow White dolls and Halloween costumes, have slashed orders after scanning social sentiment dashboards. a prominent fast food chain quietly pulled a planned kids' meal promotion featuring Zegler's likeness, opting instead to extend its tie-in with last year's Encanto. Theme park planners scrapped a proposed parade float based on the new film, replacing it with a Moana segment. Each cancellation further reduces the movie's downstream revenue, making Disney even less inclined to invest in a rescue tour. Industry veterans say the situation is a cautionary tale about modern PR. In decades past, a studio could hide a troubled production behind glossy trailers and late-night talk show banter.
What is this process now where it's like in order to be inclusive, you have to completely destroy storylines, completely destroy franchises? I don't believe in that. I don't think that consumers believe in that either.
Today, every slip appears on TikTok within minutes, algorithmically served to those most likely to be outraged. Zegler's earlier comments, some heartfelt, some flippant, fed into a pre-existing culture war narrative about Disney's direction, and once the algorithm labeled her controversial, the feedback loop became vicious. Any attempt she makes to clarify intentions is immediately dissected by commentators hunting for the next viral clip. Executives, wary of that loop, now see silence as the only safe play, even if it leaves their lead actress twisting in the ear. Yet silence carries its own risks. Several PR consultants argue that Disney's refusal to engage could prolong the story. Vacuum breeds speculation, says one crisis management specialist. When you ghost a star, people assume the worst. Already, conspiracy theories claim the studio is planning to deepfake Zegler out of certain scenes for the Disney Plus cut, an idea sources dismiss as technically and contractually impossible, but that gains traction precisely because no official statement contradicts it. Meanwhile, fan petitions demanding Disney restore the classic spirit have amassed hundreds of thousands of signatures, bolstering the perception that the studio betrayed its core audience. Inside the company, not everyone agrees with the hard mute strategy. A mid-level marketing manager leaked that several junior staffers drafted a measured contrition campaign. Zegler would acknowledge missteps, share childhood memories of Disney movies, and invite fans to vote on which legacy song should feature in the end credits remix. The plan was nixed after a senior VP asked a simple question: what if she goes off script again? No one could guarantee she wouldn't. Proposal dead. For Zegler, the professional stakes are immense. Her West Side Story performance earned rave reviews, but that movie also underperformed commercially, giving studio accountants a convenient pattern. Great actress, questionable box office draw. If Snow White finishes deep in the red, and Zegler becomes synonymous with the flop, future casting directors may hesitate. Hollywood forgiveness often arrives through a breakout follow-up role, yet agencies report that the scripts landing on her desk right now are mostly mid-budget, streaming thrillers, projects unlikely to reset a narrative built on nine-figure losses. One prominent producer says she's radioactive until the next hit proves otherwise. Disney, of course, has bigger worries than one star's career. The studio's entire remake strategy is in limbo after Snow White's failure forced executives to confront remake fatigue, skyrocketing costs, and a changing social climate. By shelving all pending reboots, they've freed billions in capital but also surrendered a revenue model that once looked bulletproof. Shareholders are watching to see whether original IP can fill the gap. If upcoming animated musicals or mid-budget fantasies stumble, pressure may mount to revive remakes. Yet doing so would require a blueprint that avoids another Zegler-style conflagration. Some insiders suggest future projects might rely more on ensemble casts and less on single, outspoken leads, diluting the risk of any one actor derailing marketing. For now, the silence persists. Zegler rehearses apology lines her audience may never hear. Disney strategists monitor sentiment dashboards, praying each news cycle moves on. Godot's lawyers draft statements in case the defamation claim becomes real. And fans, torn between nostalgia and progress, continue to argue in comment sections that only grow more polarized as the studio refuses to clarify its position. It is a modern fairy tale without a moral, just a caution. In the era of algorithmic outrage, even a princess can be ghosted by the kingdom that crowned her. What's your take? Should Disney break its silence and let Rachel Zegler try to mend fences? Or is the studio right to retreat and focus on new stories? Share your thoughts below. Smash that like button if you appreciate these deep dive industry breakdowns, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next big reveal, and keep watching. The video on screen now unpacks how Warner Brothers plans to seize the family film crown Disney just dropped.